The final race of the season is about to get underway in Clio Cup Series. Welcome to a sunny Spain. Welcome to the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya. We are not far from Barcelona city centre, and we are ready for the championship showdown for both Clio Cup Italia and also Clio Cup Spain. Yesterday, the European title was decided, the overall title decided in favour of Anthony Gerardo. And after an amazing season, not only in terms of 9 race wins, but also in the turnaround in the way that he's driven, bearing in mind he was a little bit incident prone and penalty prone last year. He's been an absolute revelation, and he's won the title with a race to spare. Second is still on the line. We've also got the Challengers Cup up for grabs in both Italy and Spain as well, plus a race in isolation to look forward to. So there's a lot going on over the next 25 minutes plus 1 lap. There are 48 cars heading to the grid. One of them a little bit late on parade. Alex Lausch's car has just finally completed an engine change. He had the car overheating yesterday, and the Cortorto Motorsport team has had a lot of help from David Pouget's GPA racing squad to get that car ready to go racing. The bad news is, though, that he's going to start on the back row of the grid, not because of the engine problem, but because in qualifying, okay, it wasn't that quick because of an overheating engine, but he had so many lap times disallowed for track limit offences that there wasn't a lap to take onto the grid. So he and Chen Han-Lin start at the back as you look at the man on pole, which is David Pouget, 4 times a winner in Clio Cup Europe this year. But the point is, Alex Lausch is going to get his elbows out and try and make some progress. Now, before we go racing, let's get the admin out of the way just quickly. Europe, Anthony Gerardo is the champion. Second, Nicolas Milon, there he is, the reigning champion, or last year's champion, on 590 points to the 573 of David Pouget. Marc Guillot is a distant 4th, but he could just about take 3rd before the end of the season, depending on what happens to those 2 that share the front row. Stefan Polderman has won the Gentleman Drivers Contest, and Jerzy Spinkovic has already taken the Challengers Cup. There is the man that leads Clio Cup Italy, lining up 3rd on the grid, Gabriele Torelli. He has now taken 6 wins to the 5 of his nearest rival, Felice Gelmini. Gelmini really has got to win this with Torelli 10th or lower, and I don't think that's going to happen, to be fair, but you never know. It is Clio racing, anything can happen, so keep an eye. There is Marc Guillot, this year's Eastern European champion, and he will line up 4th, again for the Milan Competition team in another of the Castrol liveried cars. Clio Cup Spain, though, is absolutely wide open as you look there at Felice Gelmini, the man that comes into this second in Clio Cup Italia. In terms of the Spanish Championship, Nico Abella has 318 points to the 315 of Alex Royo. On 306 is Jorge Palomeras, who's a long way back relative to those 2, seeing how close and competitive it is. But it's going to be absolutely fascinating to see how they fare, because of them, Royo is the 2nd on the grid of Clio Cup Spain. Palomeras is 4th, and you've got to go down another couple of rows on the grid to find Nico Abella, who will line up now on the 10th row on the outside, which is the faster side, if you like, because that's where pole position is. So he's got work to do for sure. You're looking at Anthony Gerardo, this year's European champion, runner-up in the Eastern European Championship. Doesn't have to worry about a thing now, so he can just go out, try to get yet another victory. A 10th would be a really good way to round out the season. Luca Franca there, who debuted at Monza a month ago, very, very good yesterday in qualifying, got onto the front row of the grid, but made a bit of a slow start, and that rather compromised Luca Franca, but he's going to be a man to watch here, I would suggest. He lines up 8th on the grid. The one that I've missed telling you about was Alexander Finkelstein, just ahead of him, who is 6th. That is Nikola Milkiovic, who qualified very well this morning. The qualifying session held this morning at about 10 o'clock-ish, and alongside Nikola Milkiovic will be Alejandro Schimpf, who yesterday won the Clio Cup Spain part of the race on the road, but was given a 5-second penalty for track limit offences, which dropped him a long, long, long way down the order and gave brother Adrian Schimpf the Clio Cup Spain win. The grid is complete. Of course, Barcelona is like many a circuit these days, with the start and finish lines in different places. The start line midway down the pit straight, and it stretches all the way back to turn 16. Front row, David Pouget, Nicolas Milon, ahead of Gabriele Torelli and Marc Guillot, then Felice Gelmini and Alexander Finkelstein ahead of Anthony Gerardo and Luca Franca, then Nikola Milkiovic and Alejandro Schimpf round out the top 10 ahead of Alex Royo and Adrian Schimpf. Jorge Palomeras has Thomas Picard for company ahead of Mathieu Lannon-Podence and Yusso Pantela, with Julien Bazire and Jacopo Jimenez next. Nico Abella starts only 19th ahead of Giacomo Trevi from Javier Quenvez, and then Quinto Stefana. Jerzy Spinkovic would have been next on the grid, but he was given a 4-place grid drop. Jeremy Bordegaray next, ahead of Franck Horn and Christian Riccarini. Then there is Guillaume Maillot and Fabien Julia. Sandro Coutinho, a man to watch. The René Steenmetz, who was given another finger wagging for track limit offences, ahead of Cedric Delcroix and Michele Locatelli. The Turkish driver, Emre Can Ermal and Damiano Puccetti next, ahead of Michel Fay and Luciano Gioia. Daniele Pasquale has Andre Cherichetti alongside him, ahead of Joaquin Rodrigo and Gabriel Alonso. Pietro Bacchi was another driver given a 4-place grid drop. He's ahead of Lydia Simpera. Then Stefan Polderman, who secured the Gentleman Drivers Contest in the European Championship yesterday. He's ahead of Gianalberto Coldani. Dario Penica drives number 333. His only race of the weekend. It's shared across the 2 races. He's driving that car, the Italian journalist, with Antoine Bordegaray next. He was in the gravel yesterday. Alex Lausch and Chen Han Lin round out the grid. So we're just about good to go racing. The engineers now make their way off the grid. This is the most remarkable championship in many ways. All of these cars, 1330cc turbocharged, 200 brake horsepower, 4-cylinder engined Clios. It is a championship that has gone from Nogaro to the circuits of, for example, Imola, to the Red Bull Ring, to the Hungaroring, to Misano. We've had the cars at Hockenheim, we've had them at Valencia, at Zandvoort, and at Imola and at Monza. As I say, it's got the most fantastic spread of circuits. Paul Ricard a couple of weeks ago, for example, count out of that the number of Grand Prix venues that the championship goes to. And yesterday we had something quite strange in Clio Cup Europe, Clio Cup Series, which was a red flag. Christian Voorman had to throw the red flag, the race director, because it was taking so long to get cars out of the gravel at turn 3. Normally, driving standards are very good, but there was this incident yesterday, and it was a real shame because it looked like it was going to be a safety car period. That's what it started as, but it was taking so long, the race had to be interrupted and suspended before we could get back underway. So we had sort of quarter of an hour of racing plus the mandatory regulation lap rather than the full 25 minutes, and we hope for better today because these are always action-packed, and especially when you've got so many cars on the grid, there's always action, and especially when you've got championships up for grabs, there's plenty of action as well. So the green flag, as you see, is waved. The cars make their way off the grid. David Pouget, the man who runs GPA Racing, on pole position, 4 times a winner. He won yesterday's race. Not got around to telling you that, but it was a great drive to put one over on the combined efforts of Marc Guillot and Anthony Girardot, who got 3rd away from Nicolas Milan. Nicolas Milan also 4 times a winner, but 2nd in the championship. Gabriele Torelli 3rd on the grid, the man that leads in Italy and is perhaps heading for the championship. He's got to do something pretty wrong here not to win it. The former runner-up in the Italian Mini Challenge. Marc Guillot, the Eastern European champion, who is the perennial bridesmaid, it seems, in Europe. He is always, to use that well-known phrase, there or thereabouts. But this year particularly, he's just never had that last couple of tenths, effectively, to get himself right at the head of the pack. Then you've got Felice Gelmini, who is struggling, it's got to be said, to really get back onto the pace of Gabriele Torelli in order to try and take the Italian championship. But that said, Felice Gelmini is a quick driver and will be a man to watch over the course of these 25 minutes. Then you've got Alexandra Finkelstein lining up 6th on the grid, former kart racer, who's adapted very rapidly to Clio's. Anthony Girardot, well, finally, after season of winning races but not championships, something has been unlocked this year. He's the new champion. His very proud family in the paddock, all sporting their Anthony Girardot champion leisure wear. He's got a baby on the way, the dog has arrived at home, and the only thing missing, he was told before the weekend, was that Champions Trophy. Well, he's got that now to complete the set, and he'd like to go out with, if you like, a perfect 10, a 10th victory of the season. Anthony Girardot then lining up 7th on the grid. 8th on the grid is Luca Franca, who's done quite a bit of sort of national club level racing in Clios, so he knows about front wheel drive cars, but the former kart racer has looked very, very strong over the course of this weekend, and is certainly going to be one to watch to see what progress can be made from 8th on the grid. 9th on the grid is Nikola Milkiovic, who's raced in TCR, the Serbian driver in both the Italian and the European championships, as well as Clios, and lining up alongside in number 162 is Alejandro Schimpf, another Carter turned Clio racer. Behind Alejandro Schimpf, there's Alex Royo, who was the 2009 Peugeot 207 Cup Spain champion. He's raced minis, he's raced in the Hyundai Cup and the Clio France, Clio Cup Spain, Clio Cup Europe, you name it. He's another front-wheel drive specialist. And then lining up with him is number 113, which is Adrian Schimpf, the twin brother of Alejandro, and the winner of Clio Cup Spain, and indeed the Challengers Cup yesterday. And the next couple on the grid, just quickly to mention them, are Jorge Palomeras, who has been another regular in Clio Cup Spain over the last few seasons. But go back to 2001, he was in the Spanish Formula 3 Championship, and he's got alongside him the Czech driver, Thomas Pekar, 3 times a Clio Cup Central Europe champion. Central Europe Championship sort of became what the Eastern European Championship is now. Then you've got Mathieu Lannon-Poudonx in the GPA car, the Midjet racer of years past, and the very rapid Finn, Jusso Panttila, lining up alongside, trying to trick you into thinking he's Marc Guillot these days, because he's taken on board that very Renault yellow colour scheme that used to adopt Marc Guillot's car, but Marc now in the Castrol colours, the car looks rather different. So that's the front of the grid, the rest of which is still filing into place. There you look then at David Pouget on the outside of the front row, Nicolas Milan alongside him as we get set to go racing. David Addison trackside, and the last couple of cars making their way into, not necessarily out of, turn 16. There they are. You wait, you wait, you wait. Chen Han Lin is about to make his way up towards the grid, the Chinese Taipei driver for Unique Racing. And once he arrives, then that should generate the green flag at the back to say that we are good to go. That car got in a bit of strife yesterday when it was attacked early on in the race, but the good news is that it's on the grid. Alex Lausch, number 47, will definitely be a man to watch, see what progress can be made, and fingers crossed we get through the full 25 minutes without dramas. So 5 red lights will come on. When the lights go out, we will go racing, and it's David Pouget then on pole position that makes a good start. But is it good enough to fend off Nicolas Milan? As there, Anthony Girardot moves to the inside line to try to cover off those that try to make a move against him. Down towards turn 1, then always a pinch point. David Pouget it is in the yellow and white car. Then you've got the Castrol car of Nicolas Milan going to the outside line, and everybody else is trying to be third, aren't they, as they dive down to turn 1. It is Guillot just ahead of Torelli, then Felice Gialmini, and the turquoise car is next, the first one to go, the gravel. Driver keeps his foot absolutely flat to the boards, bounces out the other side, and survives the experience. So that might have been Alex Royo, in fact, that was getting all crossed up there. In drama, however, there, look, is number 162 of Alejandro Schimpf. So that is another of the quick drivers out of Clio Cup Spain in strife. Doesn't really affect the championship, other than, if he has got a problem, it promotes other drivers to get past him and score more points. The leading 3 come out of turn 4 for the first time. Pouget leading the way. In second is Milan, in third is Guillot, and there is then Torelli just ahead of Finkelstein in the green and white car, but Alexandre gets run out wide by Anthony Girardot, so the new champion of Clio Cup Europe goes 5th. Look as they drop down the hill. This takes you towards the turn 7-8 flick, and there is drama inevitably on the opening lap. We've got 1 or 2 cars delayed, and there is one facing the wrong way, so hopefully that can get going. There's a yellow flag out, but the car should be able to rejoin, so we don't need to have the race interrupted. But Pouget leads the way then, coming out of turn 9. This is the drop now down towards the hairpin at turn 10. And then you start the climb. So momentum, absolutely important here as you sort of use that S's all the way up the hill. Alex Royo getting in strife there. Nikola Milkovic in 211 on the inside line. Thomas Pekar in the orange car tries to make good as well. And he does go through on the inside line with the yellow car of Jusso Panttila next in the queue. They're heading now down towards turn 13, and then they'll drop towards the chicane for the first time. And the stragglers trying to play catch-up. But Alex Royo then being run out wide. Now, he can't really afford to lose too many places here because he wants to win the Clio Cup Spain title. We've got more cars off in the background. Look over at turn 13. Some taking to the escape road, some in the gravel, one of which is there. Quinto Stefano, who gets back onto the circuit. So Quinto Stefano rejoins. He's Gentleman Drivers Champion in Clio Cup Italy this year. Leaders go over the timing line. At the end of lap 1, then, it is David Pouget who has the advantage and leads by 0.3 of a second as the cars go through. But as I say, we've got 1 or 2 now trying to play catch-up once again. At the very, very back of the field, I think I'm right in saying, is the press car, Dario Perica. And now Anthony Girardot has got himself up past Torelli for that 4th place, edging forward all the time. And there into the pit lane limps Alejandro Schimpf. So disappointing weekend for him this. Yesterday, of course, there was that potential of taking the win, but it never came to anything because of the penalty. Now mechanical maladies force him down the pit lane. Replay of the start, good getaway by David Pouget, who was able to get the drop on everybody into turn one. And you'll see behind Alex Royo then given a bit of a hip and shoulder, and that spared him out wide. I think it was Alex Royo as the cars bounced their way through the gravel. But just about everybody survived all of that. Whether Alejandro Schimpf picked up damage in all of that, hard to say, because there was the car. Yes, has he got a puncture or certainly some damaged suspension? I think maybe he did get involved in that, and that's what's done for that left front corner. So right now, we do have David Pouget in the lead as Milan and Gio argue over second place. Another one facing the wrong way there. Look, number 118 is Andrea Cherichetti, who yesterday was in the gravel on the first lap. He's not having a great weekend. Cherichetti doesn't score points. He's one of the non-registered drivers, but he is at least back in the race as the cars battle their way through with Luca Franca there, number 191, gaining ground on the inside line as the cars now climb up towards turn 12 at the top of the hill. Loop your way round and then that drop down towards the chicane. So David Pouget it is who leads the way, and he's trying to get away from the opposition, but it's easier said than done as the cars come downhill. He's just done an absolute best, though, in that middle sector. So David Pouget has the pace. Now, the problem is, by being the race leader, that you get a toe off nobody, and you give a toe to Nicolas Milan, second, to Marc Guillot, third. Anthony Girardot in fourth place, trying to play catch-up as the cars now come over the timing line once more. That puts 2 laps in the book. The leading challenger at the moment is Adrien Schimpf. And there the gap comes right down, look, between Pouget and Milan. This for the outright race lead. Girardot behind them in fourth place now has done the fastest lap of the race, so he's getting closer all the time. Adrien Schimpf is the leading Spanish entry. Palomeras runs second. And where out of all of that do we have Alex Royo? Alex Royo of the Spanish drivers is second, third. And so that would give him 348 points, which would tie him with, he would have 351 points, forgive me, so he would be ahead. But Nico Abea is the other driver to keep an eye to. He has got a lot of work to do. Number 93, Nico Abea, to try to get himself in the mix as Nicolas Milan goes up on the inside of David Pouget, dropping out of turn 5 into 6. Couldn't quite make the move stick then. So the cars drop down towards the 7-8 flick once again. Nicolas Milan trying to fend off Marc Guillot's advances, and David Pouget doing his level best to escape. But again, as I said earlier, he is the man giving a toe to that pack behind. Anthony Girardot hustling on. The closer he gets to Guillot, the more Marc Guillot's car is going to offer the toe to him, and that'll be some of the work done. The leading gentleman driver at the moment is Javier Rejoignez-nous, the man with the Ayrton Senna-style crash helmet ahead of René Steenmetz, and then Franck Horn behind him. Or Horn as he prefers to be known. They're going through on the inside line. You can see the PMA car of Felice Gelmini, and as he moves through on the inside line of Adrien Schimpf, gains a place, getting closer all the time to Gabriele Torelli, but it's not enough because he might be closing. He needs to be ahead with Torelli way down the order. So Gabriele Torelli, 5th, keeping out of trouble, doing a sensible job here. He's on target, therefore, seemingly for the Clio Cup Italia Championship. So that's one of the easier bits. The Spanish title race is rather more complex. Gabriele Torelli, 9th in Clio Cup Europe last year, looking to be Clio Cup Italia champion this year as the fans look on. Free admission to this racing weekend, part of the regular Spanish racing package, which brings Clio Cup along with TCR and F4 to the fans. And down towards turn 1, David Pouget sits in the middle of the road to try to hang on to defend there. And he does defend with Nicolas Milan right there behind him. 2 absolute Clio experts, 2 top team principals, nose to tail, and David Pouget comes under attack then as the cars now swing out of turn 3. It's quite a climb through that corner as well. Doesn't really show it so much on the TV cameras, but try running up that and you'll know that it's a pretty steep climb, and there are more climbs later in the lap. Out of turn 4 they come then with further back in the pack, Felice Gelmini trying to get himself onto the tail now of Luca Franca. And Felice Gelmini has done the fastest lap of the race now. He's on a 2-minute 6.743. So the car of Gelmini closing up all the while onto that pack ahead. Behind Gelmini is Adrien Schimpf leading in the Spanish Championship from Palomeras. Then there is Alex Royo has gone a missing, has he not? Because Nico Abella is up in a third. Now, what's happened to Royo? He's down in 21st overall. So with Abella now ahead of Royo, that swings the pendulum in favour of Nico Abella to win not only Clio Cup Spain overall, but also the Challengers Cup within Clio Cup Spain. And the incident from the first lap between Royo and Alejandro Schimpf is going to be investigated after the race. So there the field turns out of turn 10, and Felice Gelmini, number 44, then in that almost Leighton House style turquoise livery car, the Miami blue livery, closing up onto the pack ahead. Nicolas Milan under attack from his teammate Marc Guillot. So here, look, Guillot benefiting from the toe. They drop down towards the chicane. Nicolas Milan, however, knows exactly how to win Clio Cup races and titles. He's this year's French champion. He won that at Paul Ricard a few weeks back. As you look at the next battle pack coming out of the chicane up towards the timing line, the leaders go through. Pouget, Milan, Guillot absolutely together, and more battles lower down the order, including 47 of Alex Lausch. Now there he is after the work to get a new engine on board that car that was going to behave itself. He's made good progress up into 24th last time around, and there's the potential of more places. Well, yeah, as he comes up towards the timing line, getting himself now onto the tail of that next wave of cars so he can push forward as the field drops down through turn 1. Whoops, through the gravel goes Luca Franca, and a fast car it may be, but not anymore. He's dropped place after place. Momentum disappears as he goes through the gravel. So Luca Franca, after a promising start to the weekend, loses another big chunk of places, and David Pouget might well lose the race lead here because he's got Milan right up behind him. Marc Guillot in third, look, is being caught by Anthony Gerardo as Nicolas Milan dives up the inside line there. They lean on each other, and Nicolas Milan just about comes out ahead. Pouget on the outside line as they drop downhill, but Milan has claimed the line for the next corner. Pouget on the outside line for 7. It's going to be the inside line for 8. He gets run out wide over the curb. Up the hill they climb. Momentum important here into turn 9. Guillot tries to buy into this as well. Still side by side for the lead. It's like a rolling start with David Pouget's white and yellow car on the inside line. Milan on the outside. They are still side by side. Gerardo is right with them as well. Down towards turn 10 they go. Who's going to be the last of the late breakers? It is going to be Nicolas Milan on the inside line, and Gerardo suddenly out of nowhere is second, and Pouget gets mugged down to 4th. Guillot goes wide. Pouget comes back at the pair of them, back up the inside to be second. Gerardo on the inside line. Pouget on the out as they get to turn 12. Anthony Gerardo's got the tighter line and goes second. And so David Pouget, hung out to dry on the outside line for turn 13, goes back down to 4th. Fantastic racing, and Nicolas Milan teed that up beautifully as now Gabriele Torelli is right with them as well. 5 for the race lead. Out of the chicane. Great stuff this as they come into the last corner, turn 16 up towards the timing line. And so we have a new race leader, Nicolas Milan. With that, if he stays ahead of Pouget, of course, he's going to be on target to be second within Clio Cup Europe this year. He came into the race outscoring David Pouget, so he's just got to stay ahead of him. And now, look, Marc Guillot comes up to try to have a go, partly at Gerardo, but also by sitting in the middle of the road like that, he makes sure that David Pouget can't find a way past him. Through they turn once again. Fastest lap of the race now. Still to Felice Gelmini. There's the cars with 5 laps in the book. Battle on. And the lead gap when they came across the line was just 0.3 of a second. This was the replay of turn 10. Pouget on the outside. Gerardo arrived after a mega tow to jump Pouget and also Guillot. But look, Pouget got the switchback. He let the other two battle, got up the inside. Trouble was that put him on the outside for the next sequence of corners. So here they come again, and Anthony Gerardo has not given up. This is almost Milan-esque, the way that he's driving, biding his time. Remember that he was only on the 4th row of the grid. Mind you, that's where he was yesterday to win the championship, and he's hustled on then to get himself up into second place. It's still 4, very nearly 5 for the race lead. Cars making their way now once more up the hill. And we've just had the Italian Championship Gentleman Drivers Champion, Quinto Stefana, into the pit lane. So I think we'd seen him in the gravel, hadn't we, early on in the race? But Quinto Stefana in another car in Castrol colours, another car run by the Milan Competition team down the pit lane. Interesting that you've got one of the Italian Championship drivers run by the French operation, but he knows success when he sees it. But sadly, although he's won his championship in his domestic series, retirement out of this last race, a sad way to end the season. Rest of the field turn through. Now there is Nico Abella, who is now provisionally 3rd in the classification within Clio Cup Spain, and that should put him ahead of Jorge Palomeras, because Adrian Schimpf is the leader, so that means that Palomeras for the moment can't take winning points. So Nicolas Beyer, provisionally champion-elect in Clio Cup Spain. I shall await confirmation that that's going to be how it remains for another 12 minutes and a lap, because things have been changing rapidly in all of this. Alex Royo, who was, of course, looking strong earlier on, has fallen away and is down in 21st place overall, so therefore struggling, if you like, within Clio Cup Spain. But that going off the road is Anthony Gerardo, and takes one of the markers with him as he rejoins the circuit. Marc Guillot was off the racetrack as well. So it's all getting a bit physical within that leading group. And also now, as Nicolas Milon tries to escape, the number of cars arguing over second place is growing all the time. Up towards turn 4 they come. So it's Milon just ahead. Gerardo in second place. Erstwhile leader David Pouget is third. Gabriele Torelli is up to fourth. Felice Gelmini is fifth now. We've got Adrian Schimpf, I think, also making progress at the expense of Marc Guillot. So he's the one that's lost out. And Gerardo versus Pouget for second place. Absolutely perfect, this, to let Milon pull away. This is what happened at turn 1. There was contact between Guillot and Gerardo. Mega save by Gerardo. Nailed his foot to the boards, as you do in a front-wheel drive car. Pulled it out the other side. The Marshall ducks. Oh, ye of little faith, but the cars survive it all. So there is Nicolas Milon, who now, thanks to that drama behind him, has been able to make the break. Now, the rest need to work together to try to bring down that gap. But working together in Clio Cup, especially when you're from rival teams, doesn't happen very often. Gerardo in second place ahead of Pouget, and a challenge made there. Look, with a lock-up on the inside line. That is Adrian Schimpf having a go at Felice Gelmini. Just ahead of Gelmini is Gabriele Torelli, who is still champion-elect out of Clio Cup Italia, as the cars climb the hill up towards turn 12 once again. Gerardo ahead of Pouget, Pouget ahead of Torelli, and Gabriele Torelli again is in that slightly invidious position here. He is trying to attack, he's trying to defend, but he needs also to pick his battles. As Gelmini gets run out over the curb, that gives him an advantage to have a go at Torelli, so he self-censors that, backs out of it. But of course, Torelli doesn't want to put himself in jeopardy. He doesn't want to be in a battle with Gerardo and Pouget that might take him out of the race. He doesn't really want to be battling with Gelmini, because that might put him in strife as well. So these must be a very long 10 minutes, which is what we've got on the clock now as they come over the timing line, plus the regulation lap as the leader goes through. The gap is down to 1.2 seconds. That time around, second and third just a little bit quicker, as they're going very wide. It's Adrian Schimpf. Felice Gelmini clips the curb and bounces out wide as well. And to the outside line there, look, goes Gabriele Torelli. To the inside line goes Gelmini. This is for the lead of Clio Cup Italia, and it is going to be Gelmini that is ahead of him then. It is 6 wins to Torelli, it is 5 wins to Gelmini in the championship this year, and Felice Gelmini is ahead as they get to turn 4. Behind the pair is Schimpf. Then you've got Alexandre Finkelstein, and behind Finkelstein, when they came over the line, was then Luca Franca. So drop downhill again. Marc Guillot is in that mix as well. And Gabriele Torelli, look, is being elbowed down the pack. Now, to an extent, he can afford to do that. Let people go, keep out of trouble. His battle is with Gelmini, and Gelmini has to win with Torelli 10th in the scorers of Clio Cup Italia, or lower, for him to take the championship. So the car of Marc Guillot, which doesn't score points in Italy, that one is fine. Alexandre Finkelstein goes through. He doesn't score points in the Italian Championship either, and Adrian Schimpf is in that mix. He only scores points in the Spanish series. So down they come into the hairpin then. Out of turn 10, this is the climb up the hill. Up front though, Nicolas Milon still pushing on. In the first sector he was slightly quicker, but in the second sector slightly slower than Gerardo, who's kicking up the dust there. Look, coming out of turn 12. That slightly compromises the run down towards the chicane, but does it give David Pouget a chance to challenge? Now, of course, David Pouget is absolutely stuck behind the new champion. Another frustrating season for the GPA head, David Pouget. Missed out on Clio Cup France, he's missed out on Clio Cup Europe, but he's always there or thereabouts. 4 race wins, he was the winner yesterday, but it looks as though the outgoing champion, Nicolas Milon, is going to score victory in this race. Now, Alexander Finkelstein is being given a drive-through penalty for track limit offences, so is Alex Royo, and so also is David Pouget. So number 15, David Pouget, is one of a number of drivers being given a drive-through. Jerzy Spinkovic is another. So is Franck Horn, so also is Michel Fay, but the most significant of all of those, well, 29, Alexander Finkelstein is one of them. He's in that pack, but David Pouget fighting now for second place is being given a drive-through penalty for track limit offences. Christian Voorman, who is the race director, very keen on all of this. He's got judges of fact positioned all around the circuit. It's a perennial problem of a modern day circuit with Formula One runoff zones and low curbs for motorbikes as well as cars. And David Pouget then has been deemed to have exceeded the track limits too often. Having talked about a frustrating season, this is going to be a very frustrating end to it, isn't it? Because that will drop him way, way down the order. It also takes the pressure off Nicolas Milon then, who is a runaway race leader. Although Anthony Girardot, if he can get rid of Pouget, as that drive-through should enable, can he therefore up his pace without having to think about defending and close on the race leader? If he can, he's running out of time. 6.5 minutes are on the clock. Adrian Schimpf still leading from Jordi Palomeras and then Nico Abella within Clio Cup Spain. Abella still working it out to be the champion. Third against Palomeras for second with Alex Royo, a long, long way down the field. And Alex Lausch up to 22nd from the back of the grid. So it's a great drive this. We saw a comparable one from Jerzy Spinkovic yesterday into the top 10 as the race leading battle comes in towards the chicane. You've got there Marc Guillot trying to fight back as well, and he gets into the side, does he, of Gelmini, barrels up the inside, forces the Italian driver wide over the curb. Gelmini stays ahead of him, but he didn't really have any option there because that was a bit of a dive bomb by Marc Guillot. So now the driving standards flags are being shown, the drive-through penalty flags are being shown as well. Oh, message deleted, no drive-through penalty to the cars. It's just a driving standards flag. So the message, I think, was incorrect. So that's the good news. The race will just have warnings, not penalties for the moment. And it means that Pouget and Girardot can carry on in their battle, which, look, is getting closer to the leader. It's come down from 1.3 to 0.9 of a second now. And there's always that tipping point where you are getting so close that it doesn't matter necessarily about your pace. Some of the work is done by the tow generated by the car ahead, and that's what Girardot and Pouget are relying on now. But 10th by 10th, they're going to get into the draft. The rest of the pack turns through. Alexander Finkelstein, another of those drivers making progress. And last time around, as they came over the line, Alex Lausch was still there in 21st, but he's inching up onto the back of that next wave of cars, so he might be able to make more progress before the very end. So Nicolas Milon leads the way, but in sector one of the lap, he lost a couple of tenths to Girardot. Fourth place, Felice Gelmini, heading this train of cars, has now done the fastest lap, and off into the gravel there is Lydia Sempera, facing the wrong way, spinning the wheels rather in vain, I'm afraid, and I just wonder whether that is going to be an interruption to get the car out of the way. That, by the look of it, is coming into turn 2, and it will have swapped ends coming out of turn 1, with a bit of help, in fact. Here you go. There's the contact, and that was from Sandro Cuttini, and around goes Lydia Sempera, and a yellow flag is being shown on the start line, and the safety car is being deployed. So, on the one hand, you could argue this is good news for Girardot because it brings him into the mix. You could argue it's good news for Milan because I'm not convinced that we're going to have that many more racing laps. So there is the car. Hopefully, that can be hoiked quickly out of the way, and it will only be one lap behind the safety car, but we shall see. Yesterday, when we had a couple to remove from the gravel, it took a very, very long time. So hopefully, it will be easier today. So the cars come over the timing line. Safety car deployed. Over the timing line they go. And now, of course, they bunch up. So there is the Renault safety car. If, as I say, we are able to go racing, of course, it does bring Girardot and Pouget back into the mix. The car directly behind the safety car is the very almost lapped Dario Penica Press League by Oregon team entry, which has had, I think Dario has driven it already this year at Misano from memory. But that car is going to be hopefully allowed past the safety car, but it's going to have to go very quickly to catch everybody else. So there you can see in the background the car is being snatched out of the way, so we might be able to go racing at the end of this lap, so it would pay them to let Panica's car go through here. He's just effectively being cost a lap. I know he was virtually a lap down anyway, but Dario Penica in strife that way. Into the pit lane after that contact has done some damage. Comes Sandro Cuttini in the PMA Motorsport car, one of the drivers registered for Italian points. And Coutinho's car looking a bit battered around that left front corner where it got into the side of Lydia Sempere's car with the mirror hanging off. So, Gabriele Torelli heading for the Clio Cup Italia title, Nico Abea heading for the Clio Cup Spain title, Sandro Coutinho heading for retirement, seemingly, because, yep, the door opens. And there, Nicolas Milon is now behind the safety car, so Dario Penica's car has been let through. He now presses on to try to play catch-up. He's quite an experienced racer, is Dario Penica. He's raced Clios and TCRs, for example. He's also done a bit of rallying in the past, and the safety car, as you see, will be in this time, so that's the good news. It's a brief interruption, and what it has served to do is bring everybody closer together with 2 more laps to go, really. They're going to go racing this time around. The clock will hit 0 on that lap, and then the regulation lap at the end. So we're looking at 2 more laps, or are we? The clock, a minute and a half to go. Is it going to hit 0 on this lap? The drivers then, I think they are just about going to get across the timing line before the minute and 20 seconds is up, but it will be fairly close. That's Sandro Coutinho out of the race, trying to explain how it certainly wasn't his fault, and it was all down to somebody else. But the net result is that that's the race for him over. He was on the inside, Lydia Sempere turned in, and that was the contact between the two. And the car dispatched, and it is that car in the gravel that has necessitated this interruption. The safety car will peel in this time then, but it's whether the drivers can get across the timing line in 48 seconds time that's the key. They should be able to, but Nicolas Milon has slowed everybody right down coming into the chicane, and now tries to accelerate away as the field comes through. That incident we've just seen between Sempere and Coutinho will be looked at after the race as well. And we go back racing then as the cars sprint up towards the line. So it's going to be 2 more laps. They will get across the timing line now, just before the clock needs to hit 0. We're back green, and it is Milon, Gerardo, Pouget, Gelmini, Guillot and Adrian Schimpf, the leading 6 as they go through. This also helps Alex Lausch, doesn't it, to try to gain more places before the end of the race. Down they head into turn 1 then, and you can see the way that Gerardo has put himself right into the mix once again as they turn their way through. Nose to tail for the race lead. Now, if they start scrapping, that would bring David Pouget back into the mix. Anthony Gerardo, the champion, suddenly now looks to be able to round out the season with yet another victory, which would be a very, very popular outcome. Anthony Gerardo then, much improved driver last year. He was a bit wild, penalties flew, disqualifications on occasion, but he has looked like the real deal this year. Knows when to pick his battles, knows how to bide his time, and just like Nicolas Milon always used to do, of just edging his way forward over the course of the race, not trying to win it on the first lap. And there, with big damage, is Chen Han Lin's car, which may well have been over. It's certainly been into the barrier. So there's a yellow flag out at turn 1, and lots of frontal damage then to Chen Han Lin. He's okay, he's out of the car, but that's the end of his race. And with a lap to go, it's exactly where Lydia Sempere's car was, and I'm slightly fearful that that's going to bring out the safety car again, which would scupper the last lap. So the drivers come down towards turn 10, and the yellow flag is going to be shown in that zone. Hopefully we can get away without an interruption, as there a big dive puts Marc Guillot through on the inside of Felice Gelmini, and therefore puts him back up into 4th place as the cars accelerate up the hill towards turn 12. It is still Nicolas Milon in the lead. The regulation lap then is coming up then to round out the season, and it's been a lively race as ever. Milon not getting away from Gerardo. Gelmini then coming under attack from Adrian Schimpf as they drop down the hill. You've got behind them Alexandra Finkelstein, and Gabriele Torelli is down in 8th, but keeping out of trouble and banking points. So it's a localised yellow at turn 1. No safety car as the leaders come up then to start the last lap of the race. Milon, Gerardo, then Pouget just slightly too far back. Alexandra Finkelstein is being given a 10-second penalty for exceeding track limits. The leaders go by down towards turn 1, but Anthony Gerardo is heading for that yellow flag zone. This is where, in theory, they should slow. And Gerardo does slow, and that brings Pouget that little bit nearer to him. Once they've got into turn 2, however, they go through that yellow flag zone, and we are good to carry on racing. So Nicolas Milon from Anthony Gerardo, from David Pouget, that is the top 3. Nicolas Milon looking to be the runner-up in the championship as well as to win the race. Anthony Gerardo looking for a 10th win of the season, and it could yet happen. There's enough of the lap left in which Gerardo can try to apply pressure to Milon, the team owner, the player manager of Milon Competition. He knows how to win races, does Nicolas. He knows how to prepare some of the best Clios around. And it is Milan 1, 2 and 4, because Marc Guillot in 4th place is another customer. Out they come then of turn 6, drop down the hill. So you've got Nicolas Milan in the lead of the race. You've got Anthony Girardot edging ever closer to him. It was 0.3 of a second at the start of the last sector, and the cars head up the hill with the press car of Dario Panica ahead. The gap is down a fraction, but really Girardot is going to have to give it one big send up the inside into turn 10 at the end of this straight. He's getting a toe, so he's getting closer, he's getting nearer all the time. He moves to the inside line. The blue flag is there for Panica. The top 3 dive through on the inside line, and Anthony Girardot not able to make a move there as they climb the hill. Dario Panica has all the leaders streaming past him. Girardot is running out of corners then. He's won the championship, but he wants to win the race as well if he can. He gets right onto the tail of Nicolas Milan, but the downside now is that there's only really the chicane to go, and it's not an ideal overtaking opportunity. Battles lower down, look, Torelli under attack. Girardot tries the outside. That delays him coming into the chicane, gives Nicolas Milan just about half a length's advantage, as now they sprint their way up towards the timing line. And it is going to be a race win in the final round of Clio Cup Series 2. Nicolas Milan from Anthony Girardot 2nd, from David Pouget 3rd, from Marc Guillot 4th, to Felice Gelmini 5th. 6th across the line. It is going to be... Oh, we've got a slow Thomas Picard going across the line. 6th is Adrian Schimpf, who wins the Clio Cup Spain part of the race. 7th, Gabriele Torelli. Then Luca Franca from Nicola Milkovic and Jusso Pantila. Gabriele Torelli has done enough on my crude maths to win Clio Cup Italia, and Adrian Schimpf wins from Nico Abea in Clio Cup Spain, and that means that Abea is the champion, and that's the reason why it's all changed, because Adrian Schimpf's car has a problem on the last lap, but he's taken the flag but then ground to a halt. So Adrian Schimpf down on the run to turn 1 has parked it. He did get across the line, that's the good news, but Adrian Schimpf then in problems, which is disappointing to say the least. So the checkered flag shown, the race won by Nicolas Milan from Anthony Girardot and then David Pouget. Try and do some quick computations in a moment for the different sub-elements of the race, the different classes. As the drivers then on the slowing down lap trying to go for the outside of the road, get a bit of pickup to help with the ride height of the car. In Challengers Cup overall, Adrian Schimpf wins from Nicola Milkovic, from Jusso Pantila. From the gentleman driver's side of things, it is Javier Rejoignez-nous, the winner, from Fabien Julia, who has already won, incidentally, gentleman drivers in Clio Cup Spain, and up until yesterday had not been beaten all season, but he's now had 2 defeats in quick succession. And 3rd of the gentleman drivers is the Italian driver, Luciano Gioia, taking 3rd. And as I say, as far as my arithmetic reckons, it's Clio Cup Italia honours then to Gabriele Torelli, and it is Clio Cup Spain to Nico Abea. So there, got the cars heading now up to turn 13, where Anthony Girardot, Nicolas Milan ahead of him, and then behind, David Pouget are being applauded. And for the fans, this has been a really, really lively race. The racing weekend package, as I think I said earlier on, involves touring cars and single-seaters, with Clio Cup Series being a regular guest, but the Spanish touring car, TCR and CET entry is a little sparse, so having 48 Clios is exactly what they want to watch, with lots and lots of battling all the way down through the field. And as the cars head down the pit lane, Nicolas Milan then takes a 5th win of the season. Anthony Girardot denied a victory, but he will still, I'm sure, be very happy with a championship, and the celebrations will be rowdy at the Opium Bar in Barcelona tonight. Javier Rejoignez there, the gentleman driver's winner, heads down the pit lane. And the rest of the pack all being, as you can see in the background, waved into the paddock. The top 3 challengers go to the technical area as Anthony Girardot celebrates the championship by standing aloft the car. You can see the crew members with the Girardot champion clothing. There is Nicolas Milon, who steps out of the car. So he may have lost the championship to Anthony Girardot, but he has the consolation of another race win. And he is the French champion as well. So you can sort of reckon honours even because they've got a title each. And Marc Guillot is another customer, even though Marc Guillot finished only 4th in the race. You won't see him here, but he was another champion this year. So Nicolas Milon, disappointed, I think it is fair to say, that his reign as Clio Cup Europe champion has come to an end. But the team boss walks around the side of the car, and the good news is it's one of his customers who is the champion. There is David Pouget taking 3rd, having led the early part of that race, but just couldn't quite repel the challenge. And again, we see it so often. There always seem to be more front-running Milan cars than GPA. So David is a bit of a loner. He doesn't have quite the same support from his teammates, whereas the Milan squad hunts as a pack. And there, Nicolas Milon in the Castrol overalls, David Pouget in the regulation Renault overalls, discuss their race, and very shortly will make their way up to the podium. So Nicolas Milon takes on some water. The winning margin just half a second in the end. And for the moment, at least, the circuit goes quiet after what has been a lively weekend. Nicolas Milon wins the final race of Clio Cup Series from Anthony Girardot and David Pouget, with Marc Guillot 4th and Felice Gelmini winning the Italian contest in 5th. Adrian Schimpf wins the Spanish element of the race. Gabriele Torelli becomes the Italian champion. Luca Franca coming home in 8th place. 9th, Nikola Milkiovic, and 10th was Justo Pantilla. Mathieu Lenon-Pedonx taking 11th, Nico Abea 13th overall. That gives him Clio Cup Spain outright. It'll take a little longer to worry about the challengers in Italy and Spain. I think Nico Abea is pretty much confirmed as Challengers Cup champion in Clio Cup Spain, and it was Christian Ricciardini ahead in Clio Cup Italia Challengers Cup coming into this race from the nearest opposition.
Última carrera de la Clio Cup es con quien estoy, Nicolás. Enhorabuena. ¿Cómo ha sido esta carrera?
Muy bien, es la última, entonces estoy feliz de ganar esta carrera porque hace mucho tiempo que yo no gano carrera en general y ya es hecho, entonces todo bien.
Ha sido una temporada complicada.
No complicada, muy divertida y ya, yo al final estoy segundo del campeonato de Europa y yo encuentro un chico más fuerte que yo este año y espero que voy a entrenar este verano y a ver la próxima temporada.
Enhorabuena, gracias.
Gracias.
Nicolas Milon saying that all was good with the car, and it was a good way to round out the season with 2nd place in that European Championship. No complications in the race today. Put himself into the lead and was then able to keep the opposition behind, win by that modest margin. So it's a happy Nicolas Milon who wins them, with Anthony Girardot taking 2nd place, David Pouget rounding out the top 3. And Anthony Girardot wins, as I said, the European Championship. He also wins a Clio. He also wins a BRM chronograph. And let's have a look at some of the liveliest bits of what was a great way to round out the season. Good battling all the way down through the field, and a big spin early on from the car of Andrea Cherichetti. We had this battle between Justo Pantilla getting himself there onto the back of Mathieu Lenon-Pedonx. Felice Gelmini working his way forward all the time, getting up through the traffic. And lower down the order, Pietro Bacchi also on a big charge. Getting run out wide was Stefan Polderman as Daniele Pasquale went through on the inside. Anthony Girardot edged forward all the while as Fabien Julia came under attack from Rennie Steenmetz. Felice Gelmini eventually put himself ahead of the white car of Gabriele Torelli, which gave him Clio Cup Italia lead, but then he got mugged by Marc Guillot coming down towards the chicane, which put him off the racetrack and back on again. We lost Lydia Sempera into the gravel at turn 2. This was how she got there. Bit of help from Sandro Cutini's car, which put Lydia Sempera into the gravel bed. And then it, after a safety car period, was all about Milon versus Girardot. We lost rather spectacularly Chen Han Lin into the gravel, but the battle continued on the last lap with bits hanging off the rear of the car of Damiano Puccetti. To the checkered flag, though, a win for Nicolas Milon from Anthony Girardot and David Pouget at the end of another lively Clio Cup Series race and a very good championship season. So right now, the top 3 drivers overall being taken to the podium, and once everything is ready, then they will be called forward and the Clio Cup podium will be underway, as I say, to round out what has been another excellent season of racing and another monster grid here this weekend. Of course, a fair bit of travelling is involved in this championship if you are registered for points in the European or the French or the Italian or the Spanish, because it doesn't just confine itself to the home nation, but the drivers do get a fair amount of track time with 2 test sessions, 2 qualifying, 2 races, and the other element is, of course, they get to some great venues as well, and it's another Formula 1 circuit, of course, that rounds out this season here in Catalonia. So the drivers, I can see, are being brought towards the podium, where the backdrop awaits, and for 3rd place, David Pouget has made his way to the podium. There he is. The backdrop, digital, and therefore acts as a video wall for the fans to look at if they're sat in the grandstand, and therefore you don't have to go to all the rigmarole of having to change banners and sponsors' backdrops. You can just do it digitally. Anthony Girardot is there for 2nd place. And you notice as well the podium shape is a map of the circuit, which is another nice touch. And Nicolas Milon steps forward then to go to the top step of the podium as the race winner. Says well done to Anthony Girardot for the 2nd place and for the title. Says well done to David Pouget for giving him another tough season, and also all of his customers who've been there or thereabouts all year as well. But it's a win for the Frenchman, Nicolas Milon. And so, with the national anthem played for winning driver and winning team of Nicolas Milon of Milan Competition, now the drivers await their trophies and yet more for the collection for Nicolas Milon. The honours split, if you like, between Renault and BRM chronograph personnel. BRM, another enthusiastic supporter, not only of Clio Cup, but many motorsport series. And a watch will be given to champion Anthony Girardot this evening at the awards. There, Tariq Said, who runs Renault Sport Customer Racing, he steps forward to give the 2nd place trophy and a handshake all round. And then for the race winner, the trophy comes to Nicolas Milon, and there'll also be the winning team's trophy going to La Famille Milon on the top step of the podium. There you go. So driver and team, an excellent job for Nicolas Milon once again. He treads a fine line in a sense between trying to win races but also trying to look after the customers. And at Hockenheim we saw a terribly grumpy Anthony Girardot who didn't really like the fact that Nicolas Milon had made a good move, but a hard move against him to win the race, and it was the most remarkable po-faced podium. Here though, they're all smiles, especially seeing that the bearded Anthony Girardot is a Clio Cup Europe champion. So 9 wins in this. I think it was a further 4 in the Eastern Europe Championship, which was won by Marc Guillot, another Milon driver. And the drivers now make their way from the podium and think about celebrations, which will be underway at about 8 o'clock tonight. So that is the end of the Clio Cup Series. It's the end of racing on track at the Barcelona circuit as well. And a great weekend of action we've enjoyed from the Clio Cup Series. We look forward, of course, to more of the same in 2023, with once more the championship running at Racing Weekend, as it has in Spain this week, at some of the GT World Challenge Europe SRO events, and many of the Italian ACI racing festivals as well. So great racing we've enjoyed, and for now the drivers, as I say, have made their way from the podium, and with the circuit now being given over to manufacturer laps, the end of the race weekend, the end of the season at the Barcelona circuit has come. So I think that just about concludes a great season of action in Clio Cup Series. Anthony Gerardo is the European champion. Nico Abella is the Spanish title winner. Gabriele Torelli takes honours in Clio Cup Italy, and already decided, of course, long before this weekend, Marc Guillot, the winner of the Eastern European Clio Cup as well. So it is delivered.
Pues terminamos una temporada fantástica. Bueno, coche rodando en pista, ahora aquí con la música. En fin, ha sido una temporada brillante en la que hemos disfrutado un montón. Aún más si cabe, yo creo, temporada tras temporada, según va pasando los años y vamos adquiriendo también más experiencia en los circuitos y con los directos, todo va saliendo mejor. En cualquier caso, ha sido un verdadero privilegio para mí poder estar un año más aquí junto a ti, Cristian, y junto a todo el equipo, porque de verdad que se disfruta un montón este trabajo. De verdad que me considero una privilegiada, una afortunada por poder estar aquí. Hemos disfrutado un montón y ahora queda